I'm Jane Rudolph.
And I'm Monsignor Charles Minor.
And I'm Father Joe Glass. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
Today is Mission Sunday, and when I think of Mission Sunday, I look back to a 3rd or 4th grader who would put their pennies in each week in order to name a pagan baby or a mission baby.
Well, it's more than pagan babies, because the propagation of faith is a great instructional program, an informational program on what happens in the World Mission Program.
Oh, it's a vital program in the life of the church. It is amazing. I think everyone's thoughts go back to those early days, but it's still that spirit of sacrifice and giving. We are our brother's keeper, and everyone is our neighbor, as we learn from the Gospels, and it's such a vital program in the church, the work of propagation of the faith.
Well, not only is tonight Mission Sunday, but it's also the 2nd day of the World Series. And we're going to see a group of people play ball together. In fact, they've been running around the diamond for the past 20 years.
Diversification is part of the mission program as well. I'm going to show you some diversification within the church. Father Tom Legere will talk about 4 types of spirituality for us.
Another mission of the church is education, and we're going to see how education has flourished in the past 50 years in the Diocese of Camden. And also, I'll be interviewing Peg Knight. You may remember her. She's president of the DABAR program, which is teaching children about the abuse of alcohol and drugs. They've just recently been cited by the United States Education Department. We'll be chatting with Peg about that.
And the whole sense of mission is also one of communication. And communication can mean a system. It can also mean very much a person.
Well, when we talk about communication, most of us think of the news, but I think a lot of us take it for granted. We turn it on in the morning and there it is. But what happens behind the scenes? Well, Reel to Reel woke up very early one morning and followed Pat Shiraki, the anchorwoman for KYW TV3.
The mounting trash crisis sends a Philadelphia judge out on a field trip. In North Philadelphia, the search continues for clues near the row house where 7 bodies were found, and the hunt goes on for the man who lived there. And it was a lucky 13 innings for the Phillies last night at the Vet. It is Wednesday, the 12th day of August, 1987. I'm Pat Shiraki. Those stories and more next on Eyewitness News 3 Today.
As anchorperson of 3 Today, KYW TV's first newscast of the day at 6:30 a.m., Pat Shiraki helps the Delaware Valley wipe the sleep from its eyes and prepare for yet another working day.
Good morning. Topping 3 Today News for this Wednesday morning are trash troubles in Philadelphia. A judge is to decide later today whether Philadelphia...
But by the time most of us are starting our day, Pat's day is already in full swing. Her workday begins at 4:30 in the morning. Fingers fly across the keyboard, preparing for the newscast just 2 short hours away. She prepares breaking stories and updates yesterday's news, writing her own copy for the stories that will be featured.
I knew I wanted to be a writer, but really didn't know that I was going to be moving toward broadcasting. I always had a great interest in performing, and so to be able to blend my love of writing and then the public persona seemed to be a very natural blending for me professionally. Really didn't know that I wanted to pursue a career either until I really got into it, and I realized that I felt very comfortable in it, and I liked the whole concept of being able to share information with people.
Pat finishes her preparation by going over the lineup of stories with 3 Today producer Peggy Giordano. After makeup, Pat arrives at the studio at 6:15 and takes care of final preparations until the newscast goes live at 6:30.
Yeah, I always have a sense of anticipation right before you're ready to go on the air. And there's a real sense of excitement. It seems what happens at that moment right before you go on the air, all of these scattered thoughts that you've had all of a sudden focus in and zero in on a light and a camera lens. In the beginning, I used to get very uptight about it, but now I try to enjoy what it is that I'm doing and try to have confidence about it. The life in television news, especially in a market like Philadelphia, is a very pressured life. Primarily because of the volume of work that needs to be accomplished, but the other part of it is, too, is that it is not a secure industry from a professional's point of view. You live from contract to contract. So you've got to be able to have a sense of yourself and your own ability in order to be able to get up every morning like I do at 3 o'clock and to be able to go on the air at 6:30 and say good morning to Philadelphia.
Pat was raised in Chester County, where she attended Catholic school. She received a Bachelor of Arts in American Studies from Rosemont Catholic College for Women. Looking to pursue a career in writing, her media experience began with a copywriter job at a radio station in Wilmington, Delaware. She soon took a job at a second station, writing and reporting the news. From there, she moved to a TV station in Hagerstown, Maryland, where she wrote, reported, and anchored the local news.
So I was in Hagerstown for 3.5 years and then had the opportunity to come to Philadelphia in March of '82. I started out at KYW as a street reporter. I had grown up in Chester County, so I was uniquely qualified to be a suburban reporter for them. And about 6 months later, they had an opening for an anchor. I had so much anchoring experience that they asked me to do the noon and the 5 o'clock at that point. And a couple of years later, they reassigned me to do the early morning and the noon. When I moved from Hagerstown to Philadelphia, it was a big jump for me in my career. Hagerstown's a very small market. Philadelphia is a very large market, and Philadelphia was home. So for me to be able to make that transition in a very unusual way, I felt that there was a reason for me to be able to be here, and for me to pursue my career in this city. And I really felt the hand of God working for me in that fashion.
Strong in her Catholic faith, Pat regularly lectures at Sunday Mass at the Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul in Philadelphia.
I guess I've always felt very comfortable also with publicly talking about my faith, because I frankly have seen God play a very significant role in my life. I was born and raised as a Catholic, and I went through many years of Catholic education. I look at my Catholic faith as a way of being able to praise God, as a way of being able to center myself. And to do the kind of work that I do with people, I think you have to be able to have a certain ability to be able to deal with people on a daily basis. And so I see the hand of God moving me from place to place.
In September, that hand was at work in Pat's career again. KYW sent Pat and crew to follow Pope John Paul II on his recent trip to the United States. For Delaware Valley viewers, Pat covered the Pope in Miami, New Orleans, San Antonio, and Los Angeles.
Channel 3's Pat Cherokee joins us now live from the City of Angels as she continues her coverage of the papal tour. Hi, Pat.
Good evening, Diane, from Los Angeles. We are now overlooking the 6th Eucharistic celebration that Pope John Paul has celebrated during his... I use my faith to be able to deal with the ups and downs of daily life. I use my faith to be able to deal with the crisis and to feel grateful for the accomplishment. But I think you always have to recognize that you, in fact, are a tool, and that if you think positively about things, if you have a sense of faith, if you understand where the foundation is, that you'll be able to deal with the fabric that is part of your life.
Now, Pat serves as anchorwoman, as lector, and she also writes articles for the Catholic Standard and Times in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Perhaps you've seen some of her writing.
And we'll continue to be newsworthy for you, so stay with us. We have more to come. Hello, I'm Monsignor Charles Minor. Since 1981, Reel to Reel has proclaimed the good news by bringing you stories of Christian faith in action. We do it by roaming the Delaware Valley, searching for people of faith, of hope, and of charity. But like all modern media, it is an expensive proposition. If you're a new viewer, or if you've enjoyed Reel to Reel for many years, we would like to thank you for watching and invite you to participate by actively supporting the show. Today, with costs rising all around us, we need your financial support. A donation of $5, $10, $20, or whatever you can send would help ensure the continued presence of this program. Send your contributions to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103. And thank you.
Hello, I'm Gary Maddox. Learning to read can change your life. To get help, call the Mayor's Commission on Literacy at 686-8652.
Who better to talk to about dad than mom? With us is Peg Knight, a registered nurse, a mother of two, and she is the president of a program called DAD. That's D-A-A-D, Drug and Alcohol Abuse is Deadly. Some of you may remember back in the spring a feature piece on Peg and the program DAD, And we have her back because recently her program has won a presidential citation from the United States Department of Education. Peg, first of all, congratulations on the award. Welcome to Reel to Reel. And tell me a little bit about the award. How did it come about?
Well, first of all, let me say the students received the award. That's where it's at. They've been working very, very hard and were recognized and nominated by Assemblyman Foy in the 7th District, Burlington County. He was approached by the United States Department of Education. This is an offshoot of the President Reagan's International Youth Year. So it's a major campaign, Youth Against Drugs. Our particular program was only one of 5 recognized in the state of New Jersey.
Isn't that marvelous? Huh?
Yes.
That's great. Now, some of our viewers may not have seen that piece back in the spring, so could you explain briefly exactly what the program DAD is all about and how it works?
Okay, it's student generated, first of all. The concept of DAD was the brainstorm of a student at Holy Cross High School. It is the first venture, as you know, between Holy Cross and Delaware High, rivals. And the students are trained for 14 hours, and they in turn go out to the elementary schools. Locally, Delaware Township first, and then we spread our word. We've been to Cinnaminson, we've been to Riverside, and to Beverly.
So the essence of the program really is students speaking to other students. Your work
Yes.
with the program is kind of behind the scenes. Huh?
Yes, support.
Pretty much, how's it work? Is it high school students speaking
To elementary school. We targeted the 5th grade first because we wanted to see if the program would fly, and it did, because the younger students saw in the high school students that were the local jock, the Romeo, and they were positive role models for them. Of course, that had another effect. The high school students that were doing the teaching on alcohol and drug abuse were also getting all this positive feedback, so they enjoyed it as well.
So actually the DAD program kind of created, not only to the students you were speaking to, but the ones who were doing the speaking, created a kind of a backwards peer pressure, a positive peer pressure instead of a
Yes.
negative peer pressure.
Yes, exactly.
That's marvelous, marvelous. You found it effective, you found it working. I know it has spread. You've mentioned Beverly you went to.
Yes.
You've just been approached by Cinnaminson.
Right.
Now, how does that work? If someone watching tonight would be interested in starting a program like this or bringing your people even into their school, is that possible? Do you assist them in getting a program started?
Very much so, because we're very eager to spread this as much as possible. You mentioned Cinnaminson. Cinnaminson High School students decided that they also wanted to establish the same kind of program. So our students, already trained, will go in and facilitate and train the students from Cinnaminson High.
And then they will in turn go and do the same thing.
Yes, the domino effect.
Right, it's marvelous, marvelous. And you are willing to spread that beyond the Diocese of Trenton, but also to Camden, to the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
Most definitely.
Marvelous, marvelous. The students actually got this program going. Could you just share a little bit of that? I think that's one of the nice features about it. This was not started by you or teachers, but a student said, why don't we go talk?
Exactly.
Could you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, from the very first, this has always been a community project. It was the brainchild just to have all of us get together by the then PTA president. Her name was Ann Bowen, and she gathered community people together, including the students. We were trained by the Department of Health, and they in turn, the students came up with this idea of kids teaching kids.
That's great. That's marvelous. Now tell me, with your experience of working with these students who are going out and speaking, the students that you see in the classroom, in your work as a registered nurse, the students that very unfortunately you see often in the hospital, are we winning this battle against drugs?
I like to think so. I like to think so because the students that I interact with DAD, I'm very, very proud of. I've never seen a generation that has such potential. I'm enthusiasm and loving and sharing.
So you score the today's young people very highly, huh?
Yes, I do.
All right. We do hear a lot of negative things, that there's still large egos and the values are tied in with money and self, but you haven't found that.
Not at all. Not at all. And I appreciate this opportunity to be able to say that about the young people of today.
Great. Peg, thank you very much. It's a marvelous program. Again, congratulations on that award. Some national recognition for a homespun grassroots program. It's terrific. I congratulate you, I commend you, and the young people who are working so hard to fight that battle against drugs and alcohol abuse. Thanks for being here. And now, Monsignor and Jane, back to you.
Well, we've had SAD, Students Against Drunk Driving, we've had MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and now DAD, all good examples of programs which are recent and yet highly successful.
It's so good to hear the total development from the school children. And the Diocese of Camden, celebrating its 50th anniversary, has a very special piece to show us tonight on its work in Catholic education. And it makes us very much realize that the process of education is a total involvement.
This week, the Diocese of Camden, as part of its Golden Jubilee celebration, observes Catholic Education Week for the total Christian community. On Saturday, there will be an all-day convention of teachers and administrators from both Catholic schools and parish religious education programs at Camden Catholic High School in Cherry Hill. This combined convention underscores Camden's concern for the religious formation of students both from public schools and in the parish, diocesan, and private Catholic schools throughout the diocese. There are now 64 elementary and 11 high schools sponsored by the Catholic Church in the 6-county area of the Diocese of Camden. However, when Pope Pius XI established the new diocese in 1937, there were only 14 elementary schools and 6 high schools. At considerable sacrifice, students traveled many miles to avail themselves of the opportunity of Catholic school education. But growth was rapid. During the episcopacy of Bishop Eustace, 4 new high schools were opened, and the number of elementary schools almost tripled. The short tenure of Bishop McCarthy was characterized by a renewed emphasis on providing religious formation and instruction for children attending public schools through parish-based Confraternity of Christian Doctrine programs, known as CCD programs. Monsignor Edward Lucet, then pastor of Sacred Heart Church in Camden, was named Diocesan CCD Director and oversaw recruitment efforts that almost doubled the enrollment of CCD students in a 2-year period to 20,000, and he initiated intensive evening and weekend training for CCD teachers. Tragedy struck on April 17, 1960, Easter Sunday night, when a fire broke out at Camden Catholic High School. 2 buildings, the original St. Mary's Elementary School building built in 1874 and the former Lyceum building built in 1896, were destroyed. From the ashes of this disaster came the impetus to conduct an educational fund drive, which not only enabled the rebuilding of Camden Catholic, but also the relocation of Holy Spirit High School from Atlantic City to Absecon and the erection of the new Paul VI High School. CCD received its first full-time director in 1967, when Father David Beebe was appointed to that post. In 1977, in concert with the Catholic Schools Office, a catechist certification program for religion teachers was begun, which continues today. In 1968, Bishop Guilfoyle unified all the education apostolates in the diocese into a single secretariat for education. In addition to schools and CCD, it encompasses adult education, special education, youth ministry, campus ministry, and the apostolate to the deaf. Campus ministry has grown to the point that 4 priests serve full-time as chaplains at colleges located throughout the diocese. And in 1974, a Newman Center was built at Glassboro State College. We salute today the catechists, teachers, chaplains, and administrators who serve in our parishes, in our schools, and on college campuses throughout the diocese. With dedication and care, they continue to learn and pass on our faith to the next generation, as they have done now for 50 years.
I had said that the educational process is total. How more total can you get then from kindergarten to grade school to high school, right into the college and university campuses?
And you'll learn more tonight on Reel to Reel, so stay right where you are.
Pope John Paul II has praised the Catholic press for its truth in witnessing to the faith. In Philadelphia, its suburbs, and the Allentown area, the Catholic Standard and Times serves the needs of the Catholic community by providing regular, accurate, and detailed information about your church. Keep up with the weekly news and features that shape your world. Subscribe to the Catholic Standard and Times. For more information, call 587-3666.
We welcome your comments and suggestions and encourage you to write to us at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, Room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103, or call us during regular business hours at 215-668-9842.
When Tom Legere visits here on Reel to Reel, we know that we take one step closer on our spiritual journey.
This time, though, Father Tom takes us to 4 steps. Whether it's a Francis of Assisi or Ignatius or a Teresa or a Catherine, each of us can find a very special way uniquely to reach God.
Greetings in the Lord. One of the reasons that the Church has survived for the last 2,000 years is the fact that it has always known how to respect different forms of spirituality. It's always been one of our great strengths. How sad it is then when sometimes you find people in the Catholic tradition who are trying to force people to adopt only one form of spirituality. There are many different ways of arriving at God. Let's take a look at some of them. First of all, there is what one might call a form of nature mysticism, in which we simply arrive at a sense of the presence of God in creation. It's amazing how many nature mystics there are out there in our Catholic tradition. But in the past, a lot of times they've been made to feel uncomfortable with this spirituality because they were called pantheists. Well, there's another form that is more orthodox of recognizing God in nature, and that is called panentheism, that acknowledges the fact that God is present in all of creation. A second type of spirituality has to do with relationship with God on a more conscious level. This would be a dialogical approach in which we are speaking to the Lord all the time. This would be the kind of spirituality that relies heavily on the Scriptures and is engaged in an ongoing dialogue throughout the day with the Lord, as if He were our best friend and present right here in our midst. Another type of spirituality that is just as valid is that which we would call liturgical spirituality. A spirituality that seems to arrive at a union with God as a result of the various rites and rituals and different practices that are present in our faith. Things like, for example, the Stations of the Cross, or benediction, or the liturgy at Mass. For some people, this is their greatest religious peak experience. And then finally, there are some people who arrive at their greatest experience of God through silence and through just being still and quieting the rational mind. And it is in the silence that one hears the voice of God for those kind of people. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is this, that all these forms of spirituality are perfectly valid. And secondly, just as important to keep in mind is this, that one can combine these different types of spirituality in one's life. For example, in my own life, I try to say the liturgy every day that meets one need, read the Scriptures, meditate silently, and also go for a run in which I get in touch with nature. So one thing to keep in mind is simply this, do whatever works for you. In Catholicism, there isn't only one way of arriving at God. The important thing is that we arrive at union with God, and how we get there is left up to us.
Well, Father Tom says there are 4 ways of spirituality. I think there can be more. How about you? What is your way, do you think?
Well, what about around a baseball diamond? Now, the next group of players you're about to see may look like a lot of diamonds in the rough, but these pitchers, hitters, and fielders have come out swinging from the heels for the past 20 years.
Every weekend, all across the country, people gather to engage in an old American pastime. Sometimes with friends, sometimes with neighbors, sometimes even with strangers. would-be Major League superstars grab a bat and a glove and wait for those immortal words.
All right, play ball!
Here in Glen Burnie, Maryland, there's a group of softball players with a very inspiring history. In 1968, Gus Serio was at a loss. His son Michael was not allowed to play on the Little League teams with his 5 brothers because he was handicapped.
All his brothers did play Little League, and he always wanted to play. So I just had to figure out something for him. So we figured out if they can play softball, they got, they got a chance. They can be out there in the community with the rest of them.
So Gus, with the help of friends like Gene Trust, formed a league especially for Michael and his handicapped friends.
I think it made a tremendous difference in them. They needed some kind of recreation back then, which was not, like I say, mental retardation back in those days was sort of hidden. And there were no programs, and we proved that they could function and they could play games. Since then, it's spiraled. I mean, you've got Special Olympics, everything now. You had none of that before.
Now, 20 years later, these same friends and their families still gather each Sunday to play ball.
They're very nice people. I like them. They're very good people, and they're very good friends.
It makes me feel good, and everybody's rooting for me to hit a home run. Everybody wants me to hit a home run.
Well, I just love the game. It's a fun game. I love to hit, I love to catch, and I love to play it. It's a real nice game, fun game. I love it.
Well, since the Phillies and the Mets aren't in it, I don't know if we care about the World Series this year. But speaking of caring, we're going to show you Who Cares next week. It's a program designed for the latchkey children in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
We're learning so much more about Camden Diocese, and you'll learn why the names McCarthy and Damiano mean so much at our high schools. Plus, we have an added feature. Mike Gallagher is very sharp on how you should criticize television.
And Father Jerome Bracken is going to be with us telling us how to make a moral decision. And a sister I think you're going to find very interesting, Sister Marian Hummel, selected as one of the top 40 educators in the country.
So until next week, please take care.
Goodbye and God bless you.
Goodbye. See you next week.
Travel arrangements for Reel-to-Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.
Hi, we're young adults who attend the Charismatic Prayer Group.
The church often has difficulties helping young adults.
That's why everyone is so excited about the growth at the Young Adult Prayer Group.
We meet this Saturday, October 24th at 7 p.m.
So if you're between the ages of 18 and 35, single or married, we'd like to see you at St. Charles Seminary this Saturday.
Everything begins at 7 p.m.